Hello there. This is Off the Press, where we'll dissect the issues on the national dailies and make sense out of it here on Plus TV Africa. And this morning, we are beginning with the Punch newspaper. And on the front page of the Punch newspaper, it says, Buhari receives envoy to South Africa, orders evacuation of 640 Nigerians. You find that as displayed on your page, on your screen rather, on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. And right beneath that is Air Peace designates 2 planes for operation, and Nigerians shouldn't be second-class citizens anywhere, the presidency says. Part of that story of evacuating Nigerians is we heard that more Nigerians have shown interest and are willing to return, especially those who have lost everything, so to speak, in the xenophobic attacks that we've seen recently in South Africa. Now, we see another picture story right beneath that. Again, some people's on their way to, as school resumes a new academic session at Fagba area of Lagos on Monday. It's back to school time. Again, we see the same on the right side of the newspaper, and the down part, 4 picture stories actually there indicating that the schools are back again. It's resumption period. Now, down on the paper front page, we see page 8. It says, Makinde Ajimobi's aides at war over Oyo Forest. Please check page 8 of the Punch newspaper and know what that's about. And will Falona's magic wand free Shaware from DSS grip? Please do find out about that on page 3. So many people, so many human rights activists are also saying that the government, the DSS, should release Shaware because it's against his human rights to keep him in detention. Now, I paid only 8.9 billion naira a day before handover, ex-Bauchi governor says. Please find out again for yourself what that's about on page 13 of the Punch newspaper. And on the top, we find Obaseki asks aid to ignore Oshomole. That's on page 20. Please find out again what that's about. Trade uncertainty rising in Nigeria, says IMF. Page 29 of the Punch newspaper. And Jonathan accused me of being Buhari boy. Adoke says that on page 12 of the Punch newspaper. And right behind the back page of the Punch newspaper is a column by columnist Tayo Oke, who says politics of P&ID and the $9.6 billion award. Please find out what this is about. And another picture story down there says a scene of a ghastly accident along Nasarawa-Egon-Akwanga Road in Nasarawa State on Monday. This happened yesterday. Please grab a copy of the Punch newspaper and find out what all of this is about. So we'll take a quick break now, and when we return, we continue with Off the Press, where we dissect the national dailies and make sense out of it. Now, welcome back. This is Off the Press, where we make sense of the national dailies. And with me now in the studio to analyze major headlines on our national dailies is social commentator Dr. Femi Idowu Adegoke. Thanks for coming.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right. So shall we now begin with the Punch, as I've earlier mentioned? From the first page here, front page, it says Buhari receives envoy to South Africa, orders evacuation of 640 Nigerians. Now, Air Peace also designates 2 planes for operation. That's the evacuation of Nigerians who are willing to return. Nigerians shouldn't be second-class citizens anywhere, the presidency says. Jonathan accused me of being Buhari boy. Adoke is saying that on page 12. Trade uncertainty rising in Nigeria, IMF is saying so on page 29. And Obaseki asks aid to ignore Shomole. Now, page 27 says border closure has reduced petrol smuggling. NNPC is saying that, page 27. And then we have 4 picture stories of back to school. It's September and students are back to school already. On the down page of the front page of the Punch newspaper says Makinde Ajimobi's aide at war over Oyo Forest. And then page 3 is asking if Falona's magic will be able to free Shaware from DSS grip. You find that on page 3. And ex-Bauchi governor saying he only paid 8.9 billion a day before handover. That's on page 13. Dr. Idowu, what's catching your attention this morning?
Yeah, the xenophobia, Buhari receiving the envoy. I read that earlier today, and I don't think even the president is really impressed with the report from the envoys.
Why did you say so?
Yeah, because they're still saying 640 Nigerians should return home. That means we're not making any tangible progress with the South Africans, even though we know that the police in South Africa are being prosecuted. So,
some police?
Yeah, some police are being prosecuted.
About 8 of them?
Yeah, they're being prosecuted. So I think the president himself is not really convinced with the envoy's message. That's what he's saying. That's what the signal is sending anyway. But it's a good thing that if they can return 640 Nigerians or more back home. But my other thinking about that is, what are they coming back home to?
Yeah.
And that should make us begin to look inward. That if our home is actually home, people won't have to live in the first place. You're saying Nigerians shouldn't be second-class citizens anywhere.
Yeah.
Are we first-class citizens in our own country? Anywhere you go in the world, if it's not your place, you are going to be second-class citizen. But people will feel better to be second-class citizen if they have basic amenities in other places. And if you don't do that back home, so I think there are more Nigerians than 640. Some rather stay there, live and die than to come back. Because these 640, what are they coming back to? It's good to come back home because they're still alive. But the challenge is, what are they coming back to do? Are there provisions? Yes. What is the government going to do for them? What are they going to do when they get back here? How do they integrate back into the system? Are all those things being put in place? Or are they thinking along that line? So that's what we should be looking at now.
But again, I mean, not dismissing what you've said, would the government be able to cater for all of these people? Will still be another question, you know, to think about during this time. And I agree with you when you say 640, there are more people in South Africa. Of course, these are the ones that have indicated interest, which means there are some people who are still happy to be there, you know, because
that's what I said. Some would rather stay and escape and live there because there's nothing to come back home to. So we begin to look inward and make our country home.
I think that if you ask me, there are so many lessons to be learned from all of these xenophobic attacks, you know, for us as Nigerians and, you know, for even South Africa. You know, I'm happy to hear the Prime Minister of the Zulu Nation, Mangosuthu Buthelezi, saying, you know, South Africans should not forget what Nigeria did, the contribution especially, and he praised our former President, Olusegun Obasanjo. We hope that we'll see an end to all of this. And yes, what else? We have picture stories here. We have, what are your thoughts on the whole Showares issue? Human rights activists are saying, you know, they shouldn't keep him in detention. Again, that is against his human rights and, you know, as contained in the Constitution. Yeah,
but you know, the matter is in court. So there's little or nothing we can do from the outside. There's a lawyer, there's a case on it and all that. So I hope he gets his freedom on time because personally, I don't think he should be held because he hasn't done anything against the nation. He wanted a peaceful march, which even in the military time, people had peaceful march against the military government.
Not to talk of a democratic system.
And now we're in a democratic system. Are we really in democratic system? That's the question we need to ask ourselves.
Good. All right, so that will be it, because here we just have picture stories. Please grab a copy of the Punch newspaper and go through for yourself all of these stories contained here. And we'll be moving on now to the Nation newspaper. And on the front page of the Nation, it says, Shell loses 202 million naira daily to vandals and oil thieves. That's really scary. You'll find that on the front page of the Nation newspaper. And Ashim Olowo to testify against Coza pastor. That's on page 7. DSS alleges plan to destabilize Nigeria. Again, on page 7, as displayed there on your screen of the Nation newspaper. And then Senator Tinubu El-Rufai win, and then Carlo loses. You find that on page 8. And Everton to bring Iwobi back to form. You find that on page 4. I'm sure you'll be happy to speak on that much when we are done with all of this intro, because you told me you're a sports
I'm a football fan.
Yeah. So 6 feared killed in Lagos court war. Please find that on page 4. And chaos as British Airways cancels flights. That's on page 44. Now, Buhari to South Africa, stop attacks on Nigerians. Our president is heard to say that. And then on the down part of the front page, we say Shiites dare IGP Adamu on planned procession. It says government shouldn't contemplate attacking us, police, and IMN remains proscribed. So the Shiite is saying that the government shouldn't contemplate it to attack them at all. Today is the day for the Ashura procession. Yeah. And then the police is saying, well, IMN remains proscribed. And it says that any of their gatherings, including today's procession, it's illegal. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Well,
I mean, which one are you beginning with?
Yeah, I'll start from where you stopped.
Okay,
the Shiite. It's I don't know how the police and the government will deal with this, because
it's worrying, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really worrying. The last procession and the face off with the police, we lost a young man who was serving in Abuja. We lost a senior police officer. Sure. So life has been lost already, and then the police are saying they're going to come out against the Shiite. Shiite is saying they don't mind, come at us. I just feel the police and the federal government needs to be very, very tactical, because these are people who are willing to die for what they believe in, and they don't seem to care how many people will go down with them, because if they can be issuing a statement to say that, yeah, don't contemplate attacking us, that means they're coming out, and they're gonna. But it comes back to what we've been saying about our system. This Shiite movement has been for a long period of time, and we've been watching. And there are others like that. We're not doing anything until they grow out of hand and they become a menace in the system. And now we're trying to curb them when they are fully grown. I read somewhere that they have over 5 million followers in Nigeria alone. Imagine 5 million people say, I want to die. The country will not be able to handle it. It's really, it has to be, the police have to be very, very tactical. They can't just go out, because that means people will not be able to go about their daily businesses with the fear of being get attacked or mobbed by Shiite or stray bullet from the police.
I mean, I agree with you. It's scary. I agree on the part that it is quite scary, because the police is issuing statements, and they are also issuing counter statements saying, in fact, part of what they said in the statement that we read this morning on the news is some Nigerians, they claim they have information that the government wants to use their procession to cause a menace, and then point accusing finger on them. And so they are saying, you know what, we're still going out today and asking even the international communities to say, civil organizations, societies to say, watch, we are going to have our procession today, because
they are proscribed. They are not recognized in Nigeria. So they are not to be given this privilege of possession or whatever.
I mean, so that's where there's a problem, because even the government they are a proscribed movement, so to speak, but they have not accepted that, and so that's why they are going out today, even though the police is saying this is illegal. We only pray and hope that it doesn't escalate to violence today, because of course they said they will be having the procession today because it's a religious annual ritual for all Shia Muslims around the world, not just those in Nigeria. We can only pray that it ends peacefully. Now, the burial for Robert Mugabe will be on Sunday. I just saw that now on page 44. And banks reject costly deposits on page 11. Children also are back to school. So you promised to speak on Everton to bring Iwobi back to form. What's that about?
Yeah, it's good for Iwobi to play regularly and get games. And then that's on the fallout of that will be good for Nigeria. When he represents the country, he will be on top of his game, because he's one of our young, experienced players that will be looking out for in our next outing.
All right, Shell says it loses 202 million naira daily to vandals and oil thieves. And I am thinking that's a lot of money to lose a day, you know. And one wonders, what are we doing, about vandalism? Because it's every day we hear it in the news.
Yeah. It comes back to what I was listening to the news this morning on education, which is there's the late sage Chief Femi Idowu Adegoke said something about the children of the poor that you've neglected today. We not let your children sleep later in future.
Peace.
In peace. That's what we are seeing today. And they were talking about education. In Nigeria today, I think Chief Femi Idowu Adegoke was the last visionary leader that Nigeria had, and the one who placed priority on education. Today, our primary schools, secondary schools are all dilapidated.
Sadly.
They are nothing to write home about. Even the private schools, some of them are just shabby, but people pay so that their children just get one form of education.
Better education, so to speak.
Yeah. Because there was a picture I saw earlier this morning. People were sitting on the floor in public schools with no roof, with leakages in it. I went to public school all my life. My parents took me from private school to public primary school.
Why was that?
Yeah, my father saw that the books he was paying for in the private school were being given for free in the then Oyo State. In public school. So, and I went to public school for primary school. I went to one of the unity school in secondary school, and I went to public university. And even people will say we didn't have good education in the 80s and the 90s. But I'm still very, very happy with what I got compared to what I'm seeing now. So what are we, in the next 20 years, what will be of this country? We're talking about vandalism, we're talking about kidnapping, we're talking about people that are supposed to be in schools. Yes, people that are supposed to be in schools now. The UNESCO said Nigeria has over 10 million children out of schools.
Yeah, that's true. So
imagine in the next 10 years, those children of school age now, they would have added 10 years to their age. And what would they have become in the society? And we're now talking about vandalism. There's a saying that said, an idle mind is the devil's workshop.
Sure.
They don't have what to do. They don't have any form of trade. They don't have any form of education. They will take to crime.
So you're saying let's go to the root cause, tackle the roots, give them education, and they'll be off the streets.
Yes, and Shell, the private sectors, they have a lot to do. I know they've done some good job, but they still have to do. So for them to curb these laws, I'm telling you, if they spend half of what they're losing here on education, it will be a long-term savings for them.
Wow, that's scary right there. All right, so we'll go to Vanguard again. Vanguard newspaper front page says South Africa planned ambush for returning Nigerians. That's their big story there, which you'll find on page 5. And then CBN removes 5% cap on interest rates for mortgage loans on page 19. Nigeria's greasy, sleazy billion-dollar oil theft industry. That's on page 26 and 27 of the Vanguard newspaper. Coza, court summons Ashimolowo, asks Fatoyinbo to appear within 14 days. That's 2 weeks. You find that on page 8 as well. And then Shaware's detention. Judge, lawyer exchange hot words over case file. You find that on page 9 as well. 2011 post-poll violence certificate scandal. Why Jonathan declined to prosecute Buhari. That's Adoke on page 8. And the Makinde Ajimobi trade wars over revocation of 26,000 hectare land. I believe that's Oyo, the same story we saw. Yeah. And then fake news, some people plotting to set Nigeria on fire, says DSS. Please find out what this is about as displayed on your page. You will find it on page 9. And 1.3 million teachers face sack as new session begins. Maybe that's something to talk about.
You see, I've not read that story, but we're saying our education is on the downward turn, and now you want to sack teachers.
What if they are not competent?
Yeah, but you want to sack those ones? Do you have replacement? Have you trained? What has happened to our College of Educations, teacher training colleges? What has happened to them? They're all gone. Another news I heard this morning about nurses, that Nigeria is short of nurses and midwives. Because they've all fled the country. It's all part of it. What is happening to our school of nurses? Is there anybody being trained? Are we having qualitative education, not just quantity now? So I don't understand you want to sack people. Are you prepared for the snowball? Because now you sack teachers, students go get taught, they stay at home, then we're back to where we're coming from.
We hope it will be better than that. All right, on the back page of Vanguard, in the interest of time, sorry, it says, no hiding place for Sudan, Ilechukwu and Wakali. Please find that on back page. It has a lot of sports activity I can see here. Amunike gives Imama tips to beat Sudan. And then New Eagles seek to make a point against Ukraine. Maradona, I made Messi a free kick genius. Please find out what this is about on the back page as displayed on your screen of the Vanguard newspaper as we move now quickly to ThisDay newspaper. And it says here, banks impairment charges down by 34% to 86 billion naira in 6 months. That's on the front page and continued on page 6. You see it there as displayed on your screen. And attacks, not xenophobic, South Africa insists, says 89 Nigerians were killed. That's unbelievable. Now, believes bond with Nigeria will still remain strong, seeks amicable resolution of crisis. And 640 Nigerians registered to return home. Ezekwesili and others ask Ramaphosa to apologize. You find that that's a big story for this day. And then 6 days to deadline, PEP yet to give judgment day. Please, judgment date rather. Please find out what this is about from ThisDay newspaper. And then we have DSS police and IMN set for showdown today. This is definitely about the Ashura procession that the Shiites are insisting they must have today, and the government saying, well, you are already a proscribed movement and any gathering will be illegal. We only pray that it doesn't escalate to any violence. So please grab a copy of ThisDay newspaper and find out what that is about. And at this point, I would say thank you to Dr. Idowu Adegoke for coming and for being with me to dissect, make sense of the dailies today. And that is where we'll wrap it up today for Off the Press, where we'll talk about the national dailies and the issues. Please join us again tomorrow, 8:30, here at Plus TV Africa for Off the Press. And I remain Amaka Okoye.